Please give a big hand to Marjorie Rather.
So Robin, I'm wearing purple because fuck that guy. You know? So, have you ever worn a dead man's pants? Thank you. No. Okay, online dating. My husband, I've been married 30 years. About a year after my husband left, I'm like, okay, I want a boyfriend. I went on Plenty of Fish because it's such an optimistic title, isn't it? And right away, I got a thing like, Baba Louie wants to meet you. I didn't know, like, that's just like a button. I thought like he wanted to meet me, like, wow. And so I looked at his profile and he loved Rachel Maddow. Yes, yes. And he always was nice to wait staff, and I'm like, okay, it's happening. So I wrote to him. We went out, and he was a big guy, which is great, because you know those, like, you see these women, and they're wearing their boyfriend's shirt, and they're just swimming in it. Like, I've never had that experience, you know? It's like, I'm going to swim in his shirt. This is so great, you know? And he had a big laugh, and my father had a big laugh, you know? And he was a social worker. He worked with the elderly, and so we went, you know, and he would talk, and I couldn't really talk, and I'm a talker, but he would, like, get into these things, and he would just have to tell me everything, like he built in his yard this whole, like, squirrel amusement park, where, like, you would have, like, bungee cords and platforms, and the squirrel would jump to get the food, and they go spring, you know. And I'm like, that's mean. He goes, no, it's like 6 Flags for squirrels. They love it. Anyway, I liked him because he was big like my father, and he laughed like my father, and so I felt like I liked him. So he called me for a second date, and the second date, he had gotten a hotel room. And my friends were like, that's a little presumptuous, and I'm like, yeah. You know? It's Priceline, you know, like whatever, you know, and then so I met him at the hotel, and what you think happened next did not happen next, because he got a song stuck in his head, so he couldn't focus on the task at hand, like. And it was tune yards. Like, who gets... Exactly. Like, I could see, like, Whip Nay, you know, like... But who gets... So we ended up just, like, sitting in back Googling stuff, you know. And it was, like... It was fine. And then, like, all our dates were in the hotel, which is weird because I have a house. But it's like he wouldn't come to my house because I have roommates who's right there, Hybree, and he had social anxiety. And I couldn't go to his house because he had his recovering drug-addicted niece living in his basement. So which I get that. Like if my kid were, I wouldn't, you know, it's like whatever. So all of our dates, basically, we'd go to hotels and Google stuff. Like he was into, like he suddenly, like he had to show me the provincial anthem of Nova Scotia. Like he would just like he had to, which it was okay though because my father's a little crazy, so I felt safe and I felt loved, and I'm like, I'm gonna marry this man, like this is, like, feels right, it feels right. But then what happened was Corbett was elected governor, and he cut a lot of social programs, and he closed the agency where this guy, Baba Louie was his screen name, was working, and so he didn't have a job, and then he had some back problems, and he couldn't get out of bed. He had these health problems, and he was just depressed. He didn't have a job, and so he stopped calling, and I would write to him and call him. He never picked up the phone, and it basically nothing, and the years, and I have to say this, he had brought like sweatpants to the hotel, and he'd gone one day and forgotten them, so I had his sweatpants that I used to wear to the gym. That's important for the story. So the point is, He didn't call. And, and I was like, I felt safe and I felt loved, and it was all in my head. And he didn't call, and he didn't call. And then about 2 years later, I'm driving home, and Tune Yards comes on the radio. And I'm like, I'm going to hear from him. Sure enough, that night he called. And he told me this whole saga, this whole, then he had this, and then a medical, and then he sold his house, and he lived with his brother, and then his brother kicked him out, he was homeless, he was in the hospital, all this stuff happened, and blah, blah, blah. But I said, I wasn't really listening because it wasn't really about me, but but I said, I loved you, I felt loved, and I felt safe, and it was all in my head. He said, no, it wasn't. I did love you, and I do love you. And I want to come see you. And I said, yes, come see me. And then I didn't hear from him, and I didn't hear from him. And then, so I was coming home from the gym one day, and I was wearing his pants. And I said, I Googled him. I Facebook friended or whatever, searched. And I found out there was a memorial page. He was dead. And the page had been put up by his wife. So my point is, for all you people who are dating and who are going online, the real important part of the story is if you have a date and then somebody stops calling you, it's not your fault, he might be dead. Thank you.